Now what you're seeing here is a very large steel weight. It's about, I don't know, 10 inches long and 4.5 inches tall and the same width. And my father uses that and this, which is a very large sledgehammer that he has welded on an old piece of plumbing pipe. I think it's about, oh, I don't know, 3/4 inch plumbing pipe or something. But this was in my uncle's friend's shed, and there was a whole heap of stuff my uncle dumped there shortly before he was repossessed, and that was actually where my wood stove was also hiding. And anyway, we went into that shed with my uncle's friend, and he was explaining the few things that were his and all the other stuff that was my uncle's. And then he turns to my father and goes, "Oh, by the way, he said to give you this." And my uncle looked at him, you know, my father rather, looked at my uncle's friend very seriously, and then my uncle's friend just handed this over and dumped it straight in his hands. Had a bit of a laugh, because that is one hell of a sledgehammer. But anyway, my father uses this sledgehammer in conjunction with that weight, and he lays a piece of wood down here onto the concrete and has it sitting up on the steel weight here, and then he hits it right near the steel weight, and it doesn't matter if it's a 5-inch wide log, he'll snap it, you know, it'll blow anything to bits. Now, if you either don't have a chainsaw, can't afford one at the time, or you're out of 2-stroke oil, you're out of bar oil, and one of the biggest things I find is you may have trouble, you know, you may have a blunt chainsaw chain which needs to be sharpened and you haven't got around to it, or you take it somewhere else to get it sharpened, or a friend sharpens it for you because you're not good at it, like I'm not. Or one of the biggest things I've found is sometimes it's very hard to get replacement chains for older chainsaws, so you may have troubles with that. But for whatever reason, you can use this method to save yourself the grief of playing around with a gasoline chainsaw, as I know sometimes they can be grief. I've experienced all that firsthand. And you know, this is a quick, easy option that you can do it without any high-tech stuff that may need a lot of maintenance, a lot of playing around. There are other options similar to this. This can be a rock, and this can be normal ground, preferably harder ground, but you know, this can be a higher up rock and a lower down rock, as I've got a lot of rock on my place. My uncle, I think, used to use other wooden stumps, which is an option, but one thing I think he done was actually use the tow hitch on his car, and he'd lay the wood in between the bumper and the actual ball on the tow hitch, and then he'd literally just jump on it. And if you sort of jump up, but don't just sort of drop your weight down normally, you sort of jump up and hold your legs in, and then as you're falling and you're about to hit it, that's when you push your legs out. Now this may not be very good for your knees, but you know, the wood will sort of break your fall as well, so it mightn't be that bad on your knees after all, if you don't hit the ground too hard, because you're trying to hit the wood and break the wood. But in that, there'll be resistance in the wood to break, and as a result, it'll take a bit of the weight of your fall. But that's a real cheap way to give yourself logs that are, well, maybe just, you know, short enough to get in the back of your pickup. But my father does it so it's, you know, they're short enough that they're only a foot or a foot and a half long, and he can jam them straight in the wood heater, as is. But yeah, that's just something that, you know, I thought I'd share with you, and I mean, there's a lot of alternative ways to doing this. You know, that just has to be a higher up lump of whatever that's firm enough and isn't going to break apart, with a lower down, reasonably firm ground. You know, so long as this ain't real soft sand or mud, you know, real soft clay, you should be able to, you know, use it to break wood as well. And this can be anything from, you know, a sledgehammer to another large weight like that, but you want to be careful it doesn't rebound and fall on your foot, to you jumping on it, to having a, you know, something else trained. In India, I know exactly what they'd do. They'd have the elephant standing on it, because, you know, they make use of elephants in India. But, you know, there's a multitude of different improvisations you can do that essentially break wood off. But the main point is that you've got to hit it close to where it's levering off. If you hit it down near the ground here somewhere, it'll be useless because it's not far enough off the ground. If you hit it just here, quite close, a few inches away from your main support, that's the best point to hit it at. And you know, you can't go doing massive logs with this. Well, you probably could do massive softwood logs if you had an elephant, I'm sure. You could probably do massive hardwood logs with an elephant, but you know, we don't all own an elephant here, so but that's one I thought I'd show, because my gosh, it's a cheap, simple way that avoids the expense and all the shenanigans with sharpening chains and bar oil and two-stroke oil and pull the pulsator until your flaming elbow gives out, that you may go through with using a chainsaw.